the officers will tell you they were tired of arresting the same people instead of getting them help. Like they were just, yeah, everybody they saw, they were just, it was going into the system again and going into the system. And they were like, how do we break that? So they decided, oh, this is how we break that. We actually deflect it. It's not an either or. It's not you go to jail or you go to treatment. It's how do we do the preventative before the reactive.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rescue Mission podcast, where we discuss real topics that affect real people. We're excited about today's episode. We have got Sam and Darcy from the HART program. How are we doing today?
Good. How are you?
We are excited to have this episode with you. You guys have been here before to do several trainings with us, and I know I've taken a lot out of them. For somebody that's tuning into this episode and they're thinking, what in the world is the HART program? What is it? What is the HART program?
Yeah, so the HART program is called Hope and Recovery Team. So it comprises of two plainclothes detectives, a peer recovery coach, and then we're kind of a part of it too. We're like a package deal. So the detectives are able to go out to every non-fatal overdose within 72 hours. Usually it's 24 hours, but we have up to 72. They go out, they provide services, they provide peer recovery coaching services, and then they provide Narcan if the client needs it. We follow up with all clients that they talk to make sure they're okay. If there's anything else that they want service wise that we can get them connected to, such as insurance. That's a really popular thing. I don't have insurance, but I want to go to treatment. How do I do that? So we can connect them to that. And then we just follow up with them throughout their care. So if we get them into treatment and then they're like, okay, I need sober living after I'm done, I need employment, whatever it is, we'll help them throughout their whole journey. So the Hope and Recovery Team kind of started as a harm reduction program, and the officers will tell you they were tired of arresting the same people instead of getting them help. Like they were just, yeah, everybody they saw, they were just, it was going into the system again and going into the system. And they were like, how do we break that?
Yeah.
So they decided, oh, this is how we break that. We actually deflect it. It's not an either or. It's not you go to jail or you go to treatment. It's how do we do the preventative before the reactive. Yeah.
What is harm reduction?
Yeah. So do you want to talk about that, Sam?
Sure. So harm reduction is very much what it sounds like. So reducing your harm. So that could be in any context. In the recovery world, it's obviously trying to do things that reduce your harm if you still choose to use drugs or you want to use drugs. So that could be making sure you have safe use kits or safer use kits, alcohol swabs, clean needles, Narcan with you, those kind of things. Always using with a buddy who's going to be sober with you. So if something happens, you can call 911, etc., all that stuff. So we do it every day in our lives when we wear a seatbelt in a car. So you're reducing your harm, basically. So pretty self-explanatory, but not everyone knows what it is.
Those things sound like they may be controversial.
Yeah, a little bit. Yes.
They can be, yeah.
Why is it, let's use one for example, why is it that clean needles are so controversial to people?
Yeah, so it's a lot of people look at it as enabling the user.
Sure.
So they'll say, like, why are you letting them like exchange their needles for clean needles? And that's, you're allowing them to use. And we're, in my head, I changed the wording as that's one more time that we can keep them alive to get them help. So if I have to give a client 100 Narcans and they use all of them, that's 100 times I can maybe change their life or get them connected. They didn't die those 100 times.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I talk about it when people are like, well, harm reduction, isn't that just enabling the problem? It could be seen as that. It could be seen as we're helping them. But if no one's helping them, then they're going to die. And our goal is to help them. So we're going to keep them alive enough to maybe help them navigate making the decision to change.
Yeah. So how did you guys get to the point that this was your career? How does one get connected with like the HART program?
Okay.
You can go first.
We both got our master's degrees of social work at the same time, but at different universities. So she was at IU Bloomington and I was here in Fort Wayne. And so during my 3 years doing that, you have to do a practicum or an internship placement. So I was really interested in law enforcement. I was really interested in criminal justice. I was really interested in the prison systems and how mental health and substance use is happening in the prison systems, especially juveniles. Like, how do we help them? Reentry services, that kind of thing. So for when it came to internship time, I had to pick a spot, and the Purdue Police Department on the campus here allowed me to come on, and that was the first time they had an internship person. So I created a program for social workers there where I followed up on all CIT calls with the officers, so crisis interventions. So if there was a student who was suicidal, I would go out with the officers and I would de-escalate while the officer stepped back. And I was able to help them get connected to services, or if there was a severe mental illness happening, I could talk to them. So I did that for 1.5 years. And I'm sober as well, so I have a really deep heart for this. All right.
I see what you did there.
So that
the
was
wrong
really
button, but I'm gonna
good.
go with it anyway.
I liked it.
Were you looking for the what button?
No, I was looking for the buttons.
That was
Sparkle.
amazing.
You didn't.
I was like, "What's happening?"
Darcy and Sam didn't even know we had
I
buttons.
know.
I did it.
I
This
was
is
like,
so fun.
This is great. But yeah, so I came to be I've been in the substance use field for a few years now. And so then I saw that there was this really awesome opportunity to combine my passions of social work and criminal justice. And that's how I came to be a part of it.
How far back are we going? Like,
Are you going back to your childhood?
Not
to
to the
As I was a
womb,
child.
but further than last week.
Yeah.
okay. No, I was just gonna say I got into social work. I have my bachelor's in psychology from Ball State, and my internship for my senior year through my undergrad was at Youth Opportunity Center in Muncie, Indiana. So it's a treatment facility for teens. So I worked there for about 9 months, and from there, I actually, so Department of Child Services was in the same building in Muncie in Delaware County. And so I heard about a case management position after I got my degree, and I actually went into DCS as a case manager for permanency. So even though I didn't have a social work background, I was working in social work jobs. And that DCS created a passion for wanting to help individuals with whatever they needed. I loved case management. I loved helping them with like wraparound services, focusing on those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you know what that is. If you don't, Google it, please. It's the best.
We also have a podcast episode about it.
Yes.
Amazing.
And why we feed the homeless.
Yes. Perfect. Love that. Okay. So that passion grew from that. With DCS, a lot of the parents I was working with, it was not as much, what you might think. It was more so substance use disorder. So we were removing kids because these parents had this disease that they couldn't handle on their own. They needed that support and those resources. And a lot of them had trauma, had high ACEs scores themselves. So, they were trying to cope with something that they didn't know how to. And so this generational issue over and over again. A lot of them grew up in the system, and then their own kids were in the system, et cetera. So I saw that more needed to be done with that situation, and I didn't really know how to handle it, but I decided to go get my master's degree in social work so then I could work more deeply within social work profession. So when I graduated in 2020, May 2020, and
What was going on then?
Just chilling, hanging out,
Boring.
nothing wild. So yeah, no one was hiring.
Yikes.
I had no job. Lots of debt, of course. So I actually ended up moving back home with my parents because, they wanted me to and allowed me to, which was a great privilege.
Yeah.
So I did end up getting a job as a therapist, actually. So I was a home-based therapist with Dockside Services. So they have a partnership with DCS here in Fort Wayne, and so they provide therapy services for those who are involved with the DCS system. So then I was working with DCS families again. I do have a passion for that, so I enjoyed that, but I realized that my calling was not to be a therapist individually. So I did that for about a year, and I saw this job posting, and I was like, you know what, like, after all of the, controversy going on with, police officers and social workers and everything else, I kept thinking about the fact that, like, this is not going to solve itself if we just keep fighting each other and pitting each other against each other, one profession against the other, social media is getting out of hand, etc. How are we going to work together to fix the problem? The only way to do that is to actually work with officers and work with individuals who we may not understand, or, we don't understand the opposite ends of our professions, you know what I mean? So I thought it was a really cool opportunity just to begin with for that. And I had already worked in like the substance use disorder field for a while. And it just seemed like a great opportunity. So, yeah, I mean, that's how we got here, but it definitely has turned into something that I did not expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in a good way. But yeah, like when it was first advertised, I actually was supposed to work with families more so. And then it ended up changing into something else depending on the need of the community. So, which has been great.
Yeah. Has it changed like in what you do day to day since you started? Because
Yeah.
it's been around for how many years now?
Less than 2, actually.
Less than 2.
The social workers have been around less than 2.
Yeah.
The HART program itself has been around for like 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got you guys right from the beginning.
Yes, you did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Get in on this, people.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
still new.
Yes. So it has changed a lot. Yes. So in the beginning, we were just trying to figure out what we were doing. Darcy did have experience, like she said, with her practicum with PFW. And so she is the lead social worker. So she was able to kind of help us build this program from the ground up as social workers. Obviously, HART already had their thing going, and we definitely help out with that. And we're very involved with that. But then was also like, what do we do as social workers? How can we help the community connect with officers, and vice versa? How can we build that relationship and that rapport again? How can we connect agency providers, so different agencies, community providers, with each other, because we're all working together with the same clients? How can we actually build those relationships with each other and be like, hey, let's get some MOUs signed. Let's, actually work together and make sure we are wrapping those clients with actual services that are helping them. So back to that hierarchy of needs thing, So Darcy did a great job with starting like tours and connecting with agencies. And now in the less than 2 years, we've connected with over 80 plus agencies, and we have relationships with all of them. So we're constantly calling other agencies to help us out with stuff, and they call us, and it's been really cool. So that's kind of how it started. And then slowly has developed into like the outreach that we do and the individual calls and clients that we work with and families. And now we have a pretty like well-oiled machine going on.
Yeah, until something else changes.
Yeah, until something else changes. Yeah.
Some need will pop up and we'll be like, oh, we pivot. Like, let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the priorities of this podcast is we're still, I think, finding our feet and finding what is best gonna like serve the people who listen. First we want to try to just reach our employees, right? And just to give them more of a sense of what the fabric of the city looks like, and what's out there, and who's doing what, and how that can help them, and then how that can help them do the job that they have here. But the other like just even adjacent to that is to give people a sense of what the fabric of services in Fort Wayne looks like, right? So to give people a sense that we're not doing this by ourselves.
Right.
And there are a lot of other people out there who are doing some stuff. And I don't know, this is the way I look at it. Like a lot of people are just, you have that hanging by a thread thing. Well, what it could be is you're hanging by a spider web.
Yeah.
Right. And if one little thing breaks, you still have all this other infrastructure holding that can grab you, and that's where I guess if there's a question in there somewhere, it's that Do you guys feel like you're identifying, what kind of needs are you identifying as you address a person? Like, what are they lacking?
Yeah. So a lot of it, man, it's just the basic level of care and need. But if we're talking, I'll talk about the clients we follow up with officers. So typically they don't have, transportation is a barrier. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to get it. They don't have, the funds to get a bus pass or gas or something like that. Health insurance is a huge barrier. So if they want, like I was talking earlier, like if they want to go into treatment and they want to do this stuff, they like hit that roadblock of, well, I can't because I don't have anything. So that's when I loved your spider analogy. That was so great. So like, I love it because I want to, use it. So
Look, anything good I have, I stole from somebody else. So steal away.
So I love it because like we can like start the web with, okay, let's get this person connected to a bus pass so they can get places. Let's connect them with our partners who do health insurance so we can get them all done and ready and in the process so we can then get them into treatment and therapy. Then let's work together on sober living and employment once they're done. Like it just like builds and builds and builds, and then their needs are going to change, and along with that our approach has to change. So we've noticed that we do a lot of that, and we're bombarded like every hour like with a different need, and we're just like, okay, we got it. Like kind of like kung fu masters of social services, I guess. We're just like,
I've got our episode title.
Yeah. We're just like pivoting and moving and trying to figure it out. But with our unhoused population, it's just been housing, like housing itself. The rent hikes are really incredible. So just making sure they're getting their basic needs met. So they're getting food. We're connecting them with you all or other shelters and whatever it is, making sure they have like their bare necessities so then we can start working up that triangle like of Maslow's hierarchy, like working through how to get there if they want it. That's the big thing, if they want it.
How do you determine if somebody wants it?
We ask them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. Like, do you want treatment? And they'll say no. And I'll say, okay, that's fine. Here's Narcan. Here's our number. We're here for you. You let us know when you're ready. So we don't stop. So I call us professional naggers a lot. So we'll continue to follow up. We'll continue to show like you're not alone, because people who use feel so alone. So we want to make sure that they're surrounded and they know that there's people out there that they could just call and we will answer and we will talk to them. Even if they still don't want treatment, they still have somebody rooting for them in their corner.
Yeah. Sam mentioned substance use disorder.
Yes.
And a lot of times people can have the misunderstanding that somebody is just choosing to abuse drugs, and because they're making this choice or blah, 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 that they should just deal with the consequences of their action. But there's a lot more to it than that. Can you talk a little bit more about substance use disorder?
Yeah. So it is the diagnostic manual. So our guide for diagnosing different mental illnesses, substance use disorder is in there. So this is a real, mental health diagnosis, and it is labeled as a disease. It is not labeled as something you just choose to do. So I like to use the example of something I learned through my DCS training, actually. They would often talk about how we are one mistake away from being where someone else is at. So, I mean, that can mean anything, no matter how privileged you are, no matter where you come from, there's always a chance that you have that genetic makeup, you have that disease within, yourself, and you don't have control over that. No one does. So you could be in a circle of people. You all decide to use a substance. Let's say you're a teen and you just want to experiment, everyone in that circle uses the same thing. Well, 2 of those people are going to be addicted and it's going to ruin their life. The rest of them, they'll walk away. They're fine. They just had an experience. No big deal. We don't get to choose that. So this is a diagnosable disease, just like any other disease that you would get. It's the luck of the draw. an unfortunate way of saying it, but same thing if you would get diagnosed with cancer or, you know, something else. Completely out of our control, sometimes genetic, but yeah. So it's disease.
Yeah. You also mentioned another fun word. You mentioned ACEs.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Adverse childhood experiences. So if you want to learn more about that, you can always Google it.
Okay.
You can even take a test to see your ACEs score.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher your score is, the more likely you are to have mental health concerns, the more likely you are to have more trauma, etc. So these are experiences. I mean, this could be, you know, did one of your parents or legal guardians go to prison or jail during your childhood? You know, were one of your parents struggling with substance use disorder during your childhood? Stuff like that. So these are all childhood experiences before the age of 18. And it can kind of just show you, okay, so for example, the clients that I would work with at DCS, we would have them take a test, like an ACEs score test. Majority of the parents that we worked with, their ACEs score were very high. So someone who's had a very privileged life, their ACEs score is very low. You know, they may not have the same issues that someone's dealing with when their ACEs score is high. So when we look at all of the stigma that's surrounded by like mental illness and substance use and, you know, all these things that we see, especially in our professions here, the unhoused population, you know, there's so much of this fear-based mentality and fear of the unknown, you know, oh, don't talk to that person, you know, they're mentally ill, you know, they might hurt you, etc. You know, we have no idea why they got to that point or what their diagnosis is, you know, all this stuff. If you don't have a high ACEs score, you're very fortunate, and it's very common, but it's also very comorbid with severe mental illness and substance use disorder. So it's a really great tool to look at and just kind of check yourself, I guess, you know.
The higher the ACE score too, studies have shown the more prone to cancer, the more prone to heart disease, and then ultimately a shorter life.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, you even said it a little bit before. If, like, for example, if you have something going on, and normally somebody would go to the doctor.
Right.
Well, if you don't have a way to get to the doctor,
or insurance,
or
in more ways than one, how to get,
or even a way to follow up to get a medication, or even a stable living situation so that you can take that medication every day,
or take care of that wound, or you know, whatever it is,
or have a community that actually works against you. And so I think, I mean, you guys are talking about so many good things that really would undergird what we hope is building a solid community that, because this wasn't this way 100 years ago.
No.
Or even 50 years ago, because there was a different level of community around. Even if it wasn't, you know, perfect, there was still a lot of other catches that we had that would grab the crazy uncle or the the cousin or the nephew or whatever, that just seem to have evaporated.
Yeah, and that would be the state hospitals. I think
Well,
you're alluding to.
Was that 1980 something?
Yeah, like they closed them down, and then where do people go who were there, who had no one?
Well, and
they went to jail.
And let me ask you, do you hear the question of, like, you guys got to do something about those people?
100%, every day.
I was walking into work on Tuesday, and some people across the street grabbed me and they're like, "Hey, did you know such and such was doing such and such outside your building? You guys need to do something about that."
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, we're doing we're doing everything we can.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't do it all the way, but
sure.
But we're
and
trying.
You can only do so much.
Yeah. But the thing that I would love to have a conversation around, and I don't know if we're having that now or not, but the thing that I would love to have a conversation around is, how do we get past yelling at each other for what we're not doing?
I know.
And get to the place where we can actually lock arms and say, let's try to do this, like, all of us, let's try to do this better.
Yeah. I think that goes towards, like, my goal from day one of being with the police department was, I want to break down these silos. We are so resource rich here in Allen County and Fort Wayne.
Isn't it weird?
It's
Yes.
insane.
Yeah.
However, we're not working together. And I think that that's been a common conversation with clients too. Oh, I go to X, Y, and Z for services, but X isn't talking to Y, so they don't need know what Z had said either. Like, there's no communication. So that's why with all of our partner agencies, you all included, that when we do outreach, we make sure we come to your place and we're talking to the people who are here, and we talk to you all, and we try to coordinate with you. We refer people, and then we have these MOUs, these memorandums of understanding, formal agreements with agencies, so we can connect people. We can talk about each other. Like, we can talk to our mutual client about our mutual clients, so we know, like Sam said, they're getting that wraparound care. I think that's Fort Wayne's biggest beauty and biggest deficit. We're so resource rich, yet we don't know how to work with each other sometimes.
Well, so that we don't get off the podcast without asking the question, how can we at the Rescue Mission help you guys more? What would that look like?
Talk to people about it. Give our phone number out. So if you see people like struggling, or you see clients here that you think they're ready for a change, but maybe they just don't know how, I think that's the biggest like hurdle, is the how. They just have no idea where to start because we are so resource rich. They're like, I don't know where to go and what I need. So if you see somebody that's like ready for that change, for sure, even if they're not ready for that change, give them our number, because then maybe we can start that change talk and start talking to them about, hey, we're here. That's it. That's what we do with outreach. We're just say, we're here. How can we help? What do you need? So just make sure people are aware of what we do.
Yeah, definitely like spread the word for sure. I think also provide education. So on our social media page, we have been posting like psychoeducation topics for just anyone who follows our page and likes our page. And we just try to, educate the public about, what does mental illness look like? What is substance use disorder? What is Narcan? How do you use Narcan? What do I do if I see someone overdosing? What is an overdose? Like literally just what are these common terms that like us in the social work world use all the time? What is harm reduction? Like we already talked about, we had a post about that. So we're just trying to spread the word and education with that. I think education stops fear. I also think humility stops the fear. I think we all need to take a look at ourselves daily and be like, am I practicing humility in my life? Am I just othering people and putting them in a different box because I'm scared? If that was my family member, how would I want them to be treated, et cetera. No matter what their circumstance is, whether they are using substances, whether they are actively high, if they're talking to themselves, if they smell weird or, they look different, whatever, who cares? What if that was you? How would you want to be treated? I think that's a really big deal. So looking at ourselves has to matter. Just spreading our words, spreading our phone number, making sure people know who we are and what we do. And even if you're not totally sure, like let's say you're meeting with a client, and this could be for anybody like listening, not just the Rescue Mission, but if you're meeting with a client and, they're like, well, why don't we just call the HART team together and we'll talk to them on the phone together. I have realized, like, I don't know if you've realized this too, Darcy, but sometimes we will give people the phone numbers to call and we give them like exactly what they need to do for the next steps, but they, for some reason, can't make that call on their own. And that could be for many, many reasons. Right. So I've been honestly just doing like 3-way calls.
Yeah.
So I'll be like on the phone with somebody and they're like, yeah, I really want to go to treatment, but I just don't know like what to do, where to go. And I was like, well, do you want to do an assessment right now on the phone? Like I can just call, Hickory Recovery or Allendale or, wherever avenues, and be like, let's just do the assessment. And they're like, yeah, okay. So 3-way call, talk to the person on the phone. I say, hey, I have a client on the phone. Can you do an assessment with them? They're like, yeah, sure. I connect the calls and I mute myself and just sit back and listen.
Well, and tell me if I'm wrong or right, but it's a lot easier to do that when you know the person that you're calling to coordinate
Yes.
with, or at least if you've
Yes, and that's why we
know
created
their name
partnerships.
or
Oh yeah,
know
yeah.
blah blah
So we'll
blah
be like,
over at
hey,
Avenues,
so and
right?
so, how's it going? How
Yeah.
are you? You know,
Right.
whatever. How's your kids?
Yeah.
You know, like you know them on a personal
Yeah.
level, so
Right.
then you know that like they trust us, we trust them, and so if we're bringing a client to them, they're gonna be like, yes, of course. Like
Yeah.
we'll make sure they have a bed, we'll make sure they have a room, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's
And that's
been
why
a
the-
big deal too.
Partnerships are so
Right.
Yes,
crucial to a client's
Yes.
well-being.
Yeah.
100%.
We need to have another button. This is totally off topic.
Oh,
We need a T-shirt alert. Right?
T-shirt alert.
Fear. Or education stops fear.
Yeah.
Right. I
like it.
Oh my gosh, I'm quoted.
Nice.
Sam gets T-shirt billing.
Amazing.
So.
Well, Sam and Darcy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and for this great conversation. Somebody's going to listen to this episode and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, the HART program is amazing. How can they keep up with what you guys are doing?
So we have a Facebook page and Instagram where we share. We also do a resource highlight every Monday. So that's another reason we're trying to connect all the resources too, is to also connect them to community, because a lot of people do not know that Fort Wayne is so resource rich. Like, I was born here, grew up here, had no idea until I had this job. And I was like, what? We have 80 plus agencies to talk to? Had no idea. So we try to highlight a different agency every single week. We've highlighted the rescue mission already, of course. You guys were one of our first ones. So going on our page, sharing our posts to spread the word to other people. So that's one way. So it's the HART program, HART on Facebook. And you'll see like our logo and everything else. It's Fort Wayne HART program. And then Instagram, I think, is HART program FW. So Fort Wayne. You can follow and like both of those, subscribe to those. So you'll see updates on where we're doing outreach, you know, what time outreach starts, where it is, location wise, who's going to be there, etc. The psychoeducation pieces will be posted there. And then we have all of our like contact information on those too as well. So the phone number, our website, because we do have a website through the police department in Indiana. So you can see like a little blurb about like what HART is about. And then we also, you can Facebook message us there as well. So let's say someone doesn't have a cell phone or a phone number, they can Facebook message us. That's fine too. Or let's say someone does not want to talk on the phone, because not everyone likes talking on the phone. If I have to order pizza or something, I'm asking my husband to do it. I'm not doing it. So
Can I call your husband to order?
for sure, yeah, he'd be glad to. He's a very nice man. But yeah, if I cannot online order, I will not be doing it. So I get it. You know, I would text way more than call. So yeah, you can text us, call us, whatever. We have personal work cells as well. So yeah, I would say the Facebook page is where you find all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Rescue Mission Podcast, we ask you to consider leaving a review, subscribing, following whatever platform you're on. We'd love to have you keep up with us and what's going on with the Rescue Mission Podcast. Thanks for listening.